Hello and welcome to Wednesday in Westeros. I am Todd A, and joining me today is my co-host
Taylor Trask. Hey.
And also with us is Emily Kelley, first of her name, the get-turned ruler of her condo, maker of video games, mother of cats. Emily, welcome to Wednesday in Westeros once again. We are so excited you are here for this episode.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So this is episode 4 of season 7, The Spoils of War. Yeah, I thought I would open it up with asking like sort of general thoughts on the episode, and of course, if you have too many revealing details, we can save that for later. But yeah, got any big thoughts on the whole thing?
No, I'll jump in. So obviously, we're going to talk about the holy shit moment. You know, that will happen. We'll probably do that later. Other than that moment, though, what was odd about this episode, and not in a bad way, but just I've noticed it about halfway through. There was a lot of epic monologuing going on. Like every character had some kind of like soliloquy about life, or you know, their place in the world, or the world itself. I was just like, what is happening right now? It just kind of kept going. So it was just like as we talk about characters, I'm gonna think back to that and just kind of remind myself who had the better monologue and who didn't. Also, this is the first episode to not feature Euron Greyjoy, thank Christ. And also,
I missed him. I did.
Yeah, and not to feature Sam doing something awful. So, win-win for everybody, I think.
Yeah. Emily, did you have any big overarching thoughts about it before we jump in?
I just had like this constant sense of anxiety like throughout the whole thing, basically. Like not so much dread, but just like every place that we went to, like every scene had some sort of anxious moment for me. And so I think too at the end, the ending was awesome, but I was still super anxious about the whole thing, like for Drogon and like for Dany and stuff. But yeah, just a lot of anxiety, and it really dawned on me too of like the pacing of this season is so crazy. Like we're halfway through this season, and so much has happened. Yeah. Like 4 episodes, and like 3 people are dead. Like I mean, it really hit me in this 4th episode. Like shit, like it's only gonna get faster from here.
Yeah.
And honestly, last week I thought was not fast enough, and then this one was like pedal to the metal. So
does that throw you off though? Because like they've done this before, obviously, where they kind of like just reverse. It's almost like you're driving fast in a car and you come to a sudden stop. You're like Jesus, and then kicks off again. Like is that? Yeah, we're getting some cool moments, but is that at the end of the day serving the show or the story to its best degree, or is that just an unavoidable trapping of this being TV and having to satiate all of us?
Yeah, I don't
know. Like I think that's just sort of the way it's rolling. Like I don't know how I would change it, but
yeah, that's just it.
I'm cool with it.
I don't know what they would do differently. It's like because it's if you're in the writer's room, and honestly, it's mostly just Benioff and Weiss. Like if you're in their office or apartment or wherever they decide to write, like you're just like they're sitting there going, oh my God, we have got to get the dragons out in the battlefield now. Can we finally do it this episode? Finally, please. And then they decide to, but not without a lot of other stuff first.
Well, I know that one of the things that's kind of, I don't know that bothered me is the right explanation. It just, I didn't really catch on right away. But this guy, I think his name is Ira Madison on Twitter. I'm so sorry if I got that wrong. But he tweeted out a big long string yesterday about how Game of Thrones is really not doesn't fit into the whole genre of like the golden age of television. It's more like a soap because any episode could kind of begin and end anywhere. And once he said that, I was like, oh, it all clicked, like, oh, you're right. That's totally how, like I had just before watching this episode thought like, I kind of sometimes grudgingly watch because it feels like a soap opera. Like even if nothing happens, or even if only like 10 minutes is exciting, I got to watch the whole thing to see like how everybody sort of walked, to their next location or whatever. But then there's an awesome episode like this, it doesn't feel like a movie, like a fully encapsulated episode, like the Battle of the Bastards did last year. Yeah. But, it has enough cool parts where I want to keep watching. Sorry.
You know what it does remind me of, though, now that you say that, is an episode of Dragon Ball Z. And as we all know, Dragon Ball Z is a soap opera for teenage boys or men in their 30s who love Dragon Ball Z. And it's just...
I didn't know that.
Oh, it totally is. Like, it's got this... I could do a whole blog post about how Dragon Ball Z is to Days of Our Lives. Like, the pacing, sort of the way they go about it. But a lot of the stuff of Dragon Ball Z is there's a lot of monologuing, and then there's one killer moment. And you're like, oh my God, it's all been worth it. Like any slow or just sort of misused episodes, they all fade away for that one killer moment. I think we got that with Game of Thrones, at least last night.
Well, we're gonna save that moment till the end of this podcast, even though last week we opened with a big one. But and we're going to do what we do, have done before at least, where we're going to take it sort of location by location. And our first location is Dragonstone, where we see Jon beckon Daenerys into the big black cave where our smoke fetus was birthed.
Wait, is that true?
Well, was that not on Dragonstone?
No, I thought that
was different.
They left Dragonstone to go hatch the smoke fetus somewhere else.
Smoke fetus.
But that. So yeah, I mean, I want to say Jon and Daenerys in that cave. Take it away, Emily. What did you think of that? I mean,
well, the last time Jon went into a cave with a woman. So I was like kind of disappointed. I was like, "F, this is sort of your bit, dude. Like, you couldn't seal the dealer."
That's
whatever. Yeah. So I really loved this scene, and it was really, there was a lot of scenes, a lot of parts in this sequence of events in the cave with them that I thought was really funny, because Taylor points out in the notes of like that it seriously looks like Jon and Davos just like quickly drew all those pictures. Like, no, look, see, because just from like a story standpoint, that seems like really convenient. Like, oh, hey, I need to get into your mountain to get all the.
He called her Your Grace this whole time.
I know too. I was like, good.
Come here, Your Grace. I have something else to show you, Your Grace. These are some drawings that are not by Davos and I.
Yeah.
They were here. He leans over. Davos is winking at him like, go on. He's like, yeah, the children of the forest made him. That's right.
Yeah. Like, that's like what you say when you like fake your homework and you're like, no, I totally did that myself.
I mean, you could as a woman. I mean, but did you read that whole scene? I mean, like, it screamed to me, oh, he's trying to pick her up. I mean, like, even though he wasn't, like, everything he was doing was basically like, I mean, like, everything was like, hey, come here, let me show you this. Isn't this beautiful? Now let me show you this super secret thing that only you deserve to see.
Yeah.
Can I call you Your Grace? Are you, can you come fight for me? And just like the whole thing was just so. It's like a first date. It was interesting.
It was adorable. I thought too. I mean, I thought it was maybe a little bit of a pickup, but also that he's just kind of learning. Like, if I'm nice to her, maybe she'll be nice. Like typical boy, if I'm nice to her, she'll be nice to me. Like if I call her Your Grace and I, try to show this to her in a logical way, like maybe she'll,
That's a good point.
Pay attention to me a little bit more. But like that also heart eyes forever.
Yeah.
So I mean. We're really going inevitably towards the Jon Daenerys, union, right? I mean, there's no other way here. So,
great.
Well, they're telegraphing. I mean, the show's telegraphing so hard that, like, and she keeps saying, "If you bend the knee," and I'm convinced now, him bending the knee is going to be him asking her for her hand in marriage, and not even for just a way to pay off that pun, but like you think about how. He keeps saying, hey, you can't be queen. My people will never trust somebody from the South again. It's just not going to happen. The only way for him to really do that is to marry her. That way, his people say, hey, you're going to be king of Westeros alongside her. I guess we'll accept her as a result. I look at all that. He comes back. He tries to sell everybody on that. And I have this terrible feeling Littlefinger's going to drop the Targaryen bomb on him.
Well, I was going to get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
So we'll hypothesize when we get to Winterfell.
Okay.
But back to Jon, like I guess the thing is like there's no way for the show to get around it being like they're related. Like they're that's his aunt.
Do they need to though? I mean, they've already taught. I mean, for good Lord, two of the main characters have been screwing this entire time. Like at Cersei and Jaime, and then the show has kind of standardized that. And the show hasn't there's been some scoffing at brother and sister, but it's kind of romanticized that a little bit. There's certainly not taboo in the traditional sense with all this incest going on this show. So like, would it behoove of them to be like, well, they're their nephew and aunt, that's a little different. It's not quite the same, and we've shown you brother and sister. Like, does it ever work? Is there any scenario?
Like, if you're not grossed out by that, like, why would you be grossed out?
Well, exactly. It's like, is there any scenario where this does work, where the show goes, hey, we're going to put them together and you're going to like it, and we're like, okay, like, does that ever happen?
I mean, and there's like a part in the book too, like I can't remember which book it is, but Dany's still pretty young, and it might even be when her brother's still alive, when Viserys is still alive. But she says that like her ancestors, like, probably if I become, if we go back to Westeros and rule again, that me and my brother will probably get married.
Yeah,
like that.
Right.
My brother, like, I will be one of his wives or something, or vice versa. Like, if my brother had lived, I could have married him and Khal Drogo, and then we'd be 3 Dragon Riders or something. So I don't think, I think it's maybe like our American sensibility is like, oh God, what? That's so gross. But for her, and in the context of this world, especially, it's like, this is not gross at all. Especially because they have no idea. They didn't, unlike Jaime and Cersei, who are literally grown in the same womb, grew up together their entire lives. Like, they are just now meeting. I'm personally not grossed out by it.
Okay.
If that says something about me, so
no. At this point, they're just characters we've come to know and love. Like, it's almost like you just accept the reality of the show at some point. Like, the world of the show says this is okay. And you're like, okay, I guess.
Well, and maybe they were. I mean, it's subtle, but maybe they're kind of planting the seeds for that when they a minute later have Davos talk to Missandei, and she sort of explains like, well, we don't even have the concept of bastards where I come from, because we don't even have the concept of marriage. So
good point.
All your Westerosi hang-ups.
You're bringing some Essos culture into this whole.
Throw that away.
Also, is Davos sweet on her?
Yeah.
Is he sweet on the Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one who like got that vibe, because then I was laughing because I was like, we're gonna talk about his wife again, aren't we? Like, we're gonna
I think he's sweet. He's sweet on her from a Marine standpoint. He's like, oh, she's adorable. I feel very fatherly towards her. Like, where are you from, young lady? It's like, just, it had that sort of, awkward uncle vibe.
Shireen. Shireen.
I'm sorry, not Marine. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Shireen. Yeah, Marine
Shireen,
is the
right,
place.
yeah.
Shireen is the girl. I mean, that's what I thought too. But then he said in the part where Davos had probably one of my favorite lines in the whole show this week, of where he's asking Jon, like, what do you think about Daenerys? And he goes, she has a good heart. And then Davos does that sick burn. He goes, yeah, I've seen you like looking at her good heart.
Yeah.
And then when they see Missandei, Davos said, speaking of a good heart.
Yeah, like, that's true. He is he's got a radar for like fair and just good-hearted people, I guess. Yeah, I kind of Stannis was a big miss, but
I was gonna say
justice was where he was going with
there was a certain point during that whole transaction though that I was kind of hoping Jon would like look at me and go, why are you here again? Like, just ask me, like because it was kind of an off-putting comment, and I just had this sense that Jon was going, wait, why is he here? Like, what? I didn't invite you. Like, why are you why are you here? Anyway.
Well, also when we're at Dragonstone, we get the return of Theon. And there was a very, I thought, emotionally, I mean, I know there was an emotion there charged in that look between Jon and Theon, but I honestly thought there might be like a big forgiveness moment, which was, crazy in retrospect. But where is this going? The whole Theon thing confuses me now, because the information about the defeat of, the Greyjoys arrived well before he did. And now he's shown up and he declares he's going to ask Daenerys to go to help him go get his sister back, which is like so stupid, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the whole Greyjoy plot at this point is like, as much as I loved Yara last year, it's just kind of a big wet sandwich right now. It's just like how appropriate too. That was not intended.
A wet sandwich because they're pirates.
The drowned sandwich. I just don't care anymore. Like Theon has just like what is Theon anymore as a character? Even if he frees his sister, like what is she gonna do? They're all gonna die. The whole fleet's gonna die. Much like Littlefinger, much like there's kind of a subset of these characters that I feel like we need to start wrapping them up now.
Yeah.
Like they don't play any part in the future of this goddamn show. Like, let's just get them out of the way as quickly and as interestingly as possible. And like, I feel like the Greyjoys are firmly in that camp now.
I'm just picturing the Chappelle Show skit where they have a wrap it up like buzzer, like for the Oscars that you can like the home version of it.
Yeah.
And like if Theon starts saying that and Davos just holds it up in the background, wrap it up.
Yeah.
Starts the music to play him off stage.
That's why Davos is there to do that.
But I mean, really, like there's no strategic reason Daenerys should even try to help Theon do this. So I think Theon's got to stage he's got to find that heroism in himself and go like, I'm going to get her. That's got to be where his story is going, But I agree with all the big, huge things that have to happen. I don't care about his single tiny story. But I mean, do you have any other insight on that, Emily, or any thoughts?
Not really. I mean, he's kind of the one, like, out of all of them, like, you can kind of see where their trajectories are heading, like, based on books, based on what's happened to them in the show. But Theon's just sort of, like, there, like, hanging now. Like, it's kind of like where we left off with the Greyjoys in the books was so ambiguous, too. So they're just kind of making all this stuff up, basically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for most characters, too. So I really, honestly...
My guess is I have this vision now because remember George R.R. Martin gave Benioff and Weiss his like outline, for the rest of the books and everything, so they at least had a guide. I have this vision now of them like looking through that outline. They're writing down like, oh, Arya, she comes back, okay, and let's see, oh, Jon, he finally meets Daenerys, okay, great, and it just has Theon ? Like there's just like even George R. R. Martin's like, I don't know, man.
Or it's just like missing. They're like rifling through all the pages, like shit. You didn't include anything about Theon. God damn it! What do we do?
Well, so Emily, remind us and remind me of where we leave the Greyjoys in the books.
Okay, I think. Man, it's been a while since I read. I remember Euron most prominently because he beats Yara, obviously, for the King of Pike, this stupid
King's Moot
sea shanty town, King's Moot, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go off and like sail across the ocean and marry Daenerys, and that's kind of the last we heard. Like we just assume like, okay, great, he's gonna go do that, I guess, or he made it.
He does not, as far as I recall, say he's going to murder his niece and nephew.
No, he just
personal vengeance towards them.
They're just all like, cool, I guess we'll be here waiting for you to do that, like waiting for you to come back with 1,000 ships and a hot new wife. Like we'll just wait. Yeah,
they're basically defeated at that point. I mean, the whole Queen's Moot ends in nothing, and okay, good. That's where I thought we were.
Yeah, but it's like that's what I'm saying. Like it's so ambiguous. Like it just sort of like no, we have no. Yeah. Did he make it? I don't know. Like we have no idea.
But Taylor, towards your point, I really think we're off book totally. I don't think whatever outline supposedly that Martin had that he gave to the showrunners, I think it's. I mean, I'm sure they're being faithful to whatever outline he gave them, but I just doubt that any of the details were in there.
Oh, probably not.
Yeah, I think we're way out in just they've had to make so many decisions on how to wrap it up that they're just way out. So not that that's a bad thing. Someone did point out like someone emailed into the Storm of Spoilers podcast and pointed out that in the books there's this huge point in books 4 and 5 of how Cersei is absolutely not like Tywin. Like everything she plans is like a horrible disaster, and she can't lead, and the show's going the opposite way and making it like, oh, she really is her father's daughter, and she learned all these like ruthless I
prefer that option, by the way.
Honestly too. I do too, because George Martin might have this idea that he's going to bring her back around to that by book 8 or 12 or whatever, but let's just get it over with at this point.
And it's one of those things like the idea of Tywin Lannister as a character I've always loved it, because it's a guy who took, his father basically effed the whole family. Like, they were not rich. Like, Tywin built their fortune, their dynasty, their ambition. Like, that's all on that dude. So, like, growing up, I'm sure in his shadow was not very fun. But the fact that Cersei, through it all, could achieve that is I kind of like that. And just to have that, have Mycroft himself, like, validate that and say, like, you are your father's daughter. I was like, oh, there we go. That must have felt good. Anyway. Moving on.
So, for me, I'll just throw this in there because it's going to come up over and over, is that there were so many incredible expressions from the actors in this episode, and so many just sort of unspoken, silent communications. And at least here at Dragonstone, we get this great communication between Tyrion and Dany, where he says, we've taken Casterly Rock, and she's like, well, that's a good thing. And then there's this great exchange of glances, and then isn't it? And then it's just them walking along the shore, So anyway, more of those looks are to come, but we're going to jump up to Winterfell and talk a little bit about Taylor's favorite scheming guy, Littlefinger, around whose neck the noose is clearly being tightened. And
there's and thankfully there's very few tricks left up his sleeve. This is my favorite episode for him, though, because he had this play, and he's like, okay, my play is I'm going to come riding in and save the day. And Sansa's my little puppet / protege. And so she'll be like, I'll marry you and unite the two kingdoms. And that, then he can go and attack King's Landing, or whatever it was. He had his whole thing mapped out. What he never counted on was a Stark who hated him, or a Snow, if you want to go that route. Another Stark who can see his every move and his every ambition. Another Stark who's a master assassin. And oh, by the way, that protege of yours could totally see through your bullshit. So, like, he's literally just backed into a corner. He has nowhere else to go. I don't see him doing anything else but just, launching a couple more chaos bombs before he goes out. And that's just like that, that's I don't know what those would be. My pick is that he reveals Jon Snow's parentage. Because anybody in the real world who isn't a raven would know that it would be him. I don't know. He'll throw a couple things out. I think the Valyrian, the blade, is going to be the thing that ends up killing him. I don't know. Just there was so much about this episode that I almost wanted him to die at the end of it, because they had just sort of teased so much about him that I'm like, oh, just kill him off now. Like, just do it. Don't even wait. So hopefully sooner than later.
Oh, he does ask. Wait, does he ask the question of Bran, or does Bran ask the question? No, Bran asked the question of him, like, whose blade was this originally? Whose dagger? Emily, do we know the answer to that through the books?
I don't think so. I mean, there was like a sleight of hand that Littlefinger said, like, oh yeah, it was mine, but I lost in a card game. They did the same in the show too.
Yeah.
Wait. In the show, I thought he gave it to Tyrion.
No, he lost it.
He lost it in a
card game or something. So, but basically, we never really know. But you kind of get this sense, though, that because of all the scheming that he did to kill Jon Arryn, to bring Ned to King's Landing, to figure out this Lannister thing, that probably that he had a hand in hiring the assassin. And maybe Tyrion had won it in a card game, but that Peter had stolen it back from him or something. I think it ultimately was always Peter's, but we don't know where it originally came from. I am pretty sure, but we did see it in that book that Sam had about Valyrian steel and White Walker weapons. So it belonged to someone who had made it originally, but I don't know who that is.
So when he says, that question is what started the War of the Five Kings. The War of the Five Kings is what we have witnessed on Game of Thrones. That's not like an ancient historical thing.
Yeah,
that is everybody. The war that happened after Robert's death, and no one understood the proper line of succession. So
yes.
By the way, can I just throw out there real quick? It kind of bothers me when everybody in the show knows the names of things like we do. Like I'm thinking back. I'm even
Like the
thinking
Red
back
Wedding.
to. Well, I'm thinking back to Hot Pie last week or whenever it was, like 2 weeks ago, where he's like, oh yeah, he came back and won the Battle of the Bastards. I'm like, what was it, like pay-per-view? You all tuned in? Like, how do you know that's what it was called? That's what we call it. Like, how do you guys know that? It just little things like that. Every once in a while it'll happen. It just makes me wonder.
Yeah, those are always like my favorite parts in the books and the show too, of like this really unique sort of delivery system for things like that, like where you go, like exactly like with Arya and Hot Pie, like she just went into a pub and learned something that she would have no business knowing if she had not gone to talk to someone else. So I always love those kind of moments. But you're right, like, who names them? Like,
yeah.
Was there like 4 other names for it, and this one was like the best one?
Like, well, I usually when they do this kind of thing in fantasy movies or fiction, the filmed fantasy version, they like, or even like in books, like if we called the Battle of the Bastards, like in the world of the show, to be like, the fight for Winterfell or something else. It wouldn't be like our slang for that thing. So it's just like, I don't know. It's always kind of funny when they're like, yeah, you remember that thing in the real world? Like, that's what we call it too. Okay. Anyway, moving on.
Well, so back to Littlefinger. Like, I just wanted to tease that out a little bit. Like, if he knows Jon is a Targaryen, and there's some chaos he can try to sow with Sansa in telling that to her, presumably, like, Bran knows that too, and presumably Bran actually knows who owned the dagger, and that may have been like a little lie detector he was playing with Littlefinger to see if Littlefinger would tell him, So I just wonder, I do think this is like a real delicious sort of twist. Like at the end of last season, it was kind of like, where are we going with Peter Baelish? Is it really going to be so stupid that he just marries Sansa, or somehow cons her into that? And I just thought that was like a real weak way out for him,
Yeah.
And really getting him backed in that corner. I mean, I think he's super dangerous because we don't know what he will do. But I don't know. Do either of you have a theory you've already thought about on like what happens if he spoils the Targaryen knowledge? I mean, does that alienate all the sworn men of House Stark? Like, do all the other families just leave?
All except for Lady Mormont. She stays and she becomes the true Queen of the North, and she plays Peter Baelish and then goes on to fight 10 White Walker giants, and then legends are sung about her. Just like the Bear and the Lady Fair, there will be a song about Lady Mormont that we remember forever. That's all I want. That's all I want in this world. I want, like, as badass as the last sequence, which we're gonna get to, was. I pray to God in heaven, either this year or the first episode of next year, there's some kind of sequence where Lady Mormont just cuts the shit out of White Walkers, goes on this rampage, and like like Legolas, like jumps on a shield and goes downstairs, and then when like Jon Snow looks at her like impressed, she's like 10 men, while pointing to herself.
I'll tell you, there was one of the greatest hypothesized theories I read, which is totally like crazy, it must have been in response to like Joe Robinson on Twitter or something, when somebody said Bran is going to be the one that confronts Tormund to call bullshit on his making love to a bear story. But it was like Bran knows, and then somebody said that, like, oh, he's going to call BS, and then another commenter was like, oh, but what if it turns out it was one of the skin changers from the Northern Islands, and then that woman turned into Lady Mormont, who birthed Lyanna Mormont? He is actually a child of Tormund and one.
Oh my god,
that's just all kinds of, like, as much as I want to see that explored, like, I think that's very low on the priority list.
But what if she is part bear? Anyway,
a little cub.
So while we're there, Mira also says a choked back teary goodbye to Bran, the emotionless robot.
God, he's the worst.
Well, I'm going to start referring to him as Raven Bran TM, because he gave her an even more asshole-ish response than he did to Sansa, where he's like, yeah, I don't think I was ever friends with you, but thanks. and she's just like, what the fuck? We went through everything together. He's like, yeah, well, that version of me just died, so I'm sorry. Like, you're just like, it was just so odd, and I just sat there thinking, did we miss a couple episodes where he became like a total asshole? Like, when did that occur? Because I remember there was a point last season, they were escaping the tree and everything. They met the Stark. What's the Stark? Cold Hands. Yeah, they met Cold Hands. And Bran was still, he was a little aloof, but he wasn't like just, he wasn't like, guess you're never going back through the wall, huh? Cold Hands. Not too bad for you. And just like walking off. He wasn't doing that. He was a nice. So somewhere they just kind of pushed his transition like a little too far and fast over the edge, but it's fine. I love the fact that he just kind of exists to just kind of be that guy now. Like, hey, guess what? And just share some knowledge. Like, why is he at Winterfell if not to?
I know, but so far he's not really sharing any knowledge. He's just kind of creeping people out with it. Sansa, you looked so beautiful on the night that all that terrible stuff happened.
F you, Fran. Like, why don't you do something goddamn useful? Luckily, I think though in the preview of the next episode, he does like say like, "Hey, White Walkers are coming. Probably we should get ready." But still, like, yeah, like Bran, like, and I think. It feels to me like this is going to be something that it's explored later. Like, they do flashbacks, like where we saw some stuff and they're going to go back and we get to actually see what happened. But I mean, when we last saw them last season, Hodor was dead, holding the door. Summer was dead. Jojen was already dead and Bran had eaten him. So I think Mira was like, then Mira just had to drag his nonsense emo ass like through the winter waste to the wall, like for God knows how many days, when he's like a weirdo and doesn't even care that his friends and Direwolf are dead. Like, I'm sure she's just sort of like, she was sick of him like by the time we got there, but was still hoping like that something of the friend that she knew, because in the books it's kind of implied that maybe they like each other, like that he he thinks she's beautiful and wants to protect her and all this stuff. So I think I was like heartbroken for her. Like she believed in him because the brother believed in him, and now the brother's dead. Her dad is maybe dead. I have not even heard anything from Helen Reed. And her friend, this friend that she has spent all this time with, is also essentially dead. Like, she's just sort of inundated with grief, and that she kind of just wanted to see if anything of Bran was left, and obviously it's not.
Yeah, and she kind of got her answer, that line of hers, "You really died in that cave," or whatever. That's just final. It's like she gets it. It's over.
Well, she's so probably we're probably never going to see her again. Like, this might be the last time that character is on screen. So it's like, wow, what a off-putting tragic ending to this character. It's like she's like, fine.
Well, we did see a great grouping of characters when Arya meets Brienne. Oh my God. I, for one, am hoping that's the only spin-off. You're right.
And which is interesting because like the last time we saw her, she was basically going, "I don't want your help," trying to use her as a distraction so she could get away from both her and the Hound. And it's just, so you'd think Brienne would be a little bit more put off by that. Maybe that's why she's like, relegating her to the kitty squad at first. But like, when as soon as she approached Brienne, I'm like, how is this going to go? And the fact that she used her little sword to like whiplash that giant thing that Brienne's hawking around, like, oh my God, the choreography was really goddamn good. And it wasn't like stunt people for the most part. It was largely, shots of them doing it. I was blown away. I love that scene.
Yeah.
It was awesome. And I was probably, besides the ending sequences, I was the most nervous for this scene. I don't really know why. I think Arya is so unpredictable now. In that Brienne, she knows who Brienne is. Brienne told her before, and I think Arya, I would have to rewatch the episode, but I think Arya goes like, if you were sworn to protect my mother, why is she dead? I just had this nervousness about it, that Arya was maybe not going to be friendly to Brienne.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because of what happened to Sansa as well, and what happened to her mother, and I just was really nervous.
You know what? Podrick took the place of that conversation, but he's basically like, you didn't really do anything. She said that. He kind of provoked her. She's like, I didn't really do much. And I like that that's still a thing, that she's still feeling regret for that, because it may translate into a really badass, she may sacrifice herself for one of those kids. That would be incredible.
Think that they had that conversation because she was feeling very out of place at Winterfell. And then just a moment later when Arya wants to train with her, I think that gave her that purpose of like, I can team up with this little Spitfire. and
Yeah.
you can do something cool. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, the expressions on those actors' faces during that fight
So good.
communicated
Oh,
so
God.
much. Arya's smile at the end was just, it was so awesome.
Good.
Yeah.
I do want to point out too, speaking of the choreography, the move that she uses at the end is the move that I think his name is Sorrel or Sirio. Her dancing teacher tried to teach her that first time, like in King's Landing. So it was so perfect of like her journey culminated in like not being able, being kind of this spoiled child, even though she was kind of rough and tumble back then, but not being able to do this, and then finally coming home and being a master, like that she had finally mastered this one thing. It was so cool. I got chills like a little bit, like, is that a move?
Yeah.
Quick shout out. I really liked the moment right before that where when Sansa and Bran are sitting there and Bran kind of confirms that Arya's list is real because Sansa thought it was fake.
Yeah.
And then Sansa almost goes, she kind of does a double take and then goes, who else is on your list?
Yeah.
Like Sansa embracing just that aspect. And I think when I saw her watching the Brienne Arya thing, just Sansa almost like going, "Oh, this I can make good use of this." Like,
another amazing expression, like so much communicated through Sophie Turner's just watching that battle. I expected like like the fangs, like her to just grow fangs and turn around and look at Littlefinger like, "Oh yeah." I know what to do with you now.
Like, oh shit.
It was nice to see her though, like not be uppity about it. Like, because if this were 5 years ago, her reaction would be like, "My sister's hogging on my attention," and and just like think about it that way. And it's nice for her to go, "Hey, man, my family's gonna kick some fucking ass right now," and like just being proud of that and kind of embracing that, and just like stark pride when she sees Arya. That's what I took away from it.
And Littlefinger's like kind of funny, polite sort of nod at the end where he's obviously flustered and terrified.
He's like, shit. He's like packing his things immediately. He's like, to the men of the area with me. We're leaving, all of us right now. Don't ask why. There's one of us left to burn her on. We're all going now.
What if Lil Robin Aaron comes up to fight?
Oh, God.
Hey, if we never see him again, it'll be too soon.
Yeah, exactly.
There's just the ending credits. Like it'll be one of those things like with Clue where there's multiple endings. I have this vision of there being like multiple post credits like stingers. One of them, of course, is Gendry just still rowing, out there by himself. But I want another one of like Robin Aaron just like sitting like on the Moondor ledge, just like looking down and just chucking unforgivable shit out the Moondor, just like silently. And then and at the very end he goes, and then just cuts to black. Him laughing.
Wouldn't it have been? Now you're making me so upset that when John was like, Daenerys, come into this cave with me, they're like, we didn't just see Gendry sitting in there in a boat. Anyway, let's go south to King's Landing and catch up with Cersei, who has this great conversation at the beginning of the show with Tycho Nestoris from the Iron Bank. And
Mycroft.
I don't even.
Mycroft?
I only call him Mycroft. Like I don't.
Oh, sorry. Wait. Is that a Game of Thrones name or is that?
No, it's Mycroft Holmes. He's in Sherlock Holmes as Mycroft.
Yeah.
Sherlock.
He's Mark Gatiss. He's the executive producer of Sherlock and Doctor Who.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Right. So I know him as I know him as Tycho Nestoris, which is what I called him for years as I read the book. And then I heard someone on a different podcast call him Tycho, and I was like, what? That conversation at the beginning between the two of them was better foreshadowing than all of the like previously on Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It was so, I mean, literally like just watching it open the show, I'm going, wait, why does he keep saying like, only when the money is delivered? Like it was clear that Cersei was getting ahead of herself. It was just so delicious again to watch that. Like, and so we're going to say in the next scene that we discuss, when we get the answer to that, but he does mention the Golden Company. Do we think that they're going to play a role here somehow?
God, I hope not. I mean, what's the point? Like, why do they even do that? They're like, oh, the Golden Company, dun dun dun. It's like, oh Christ, we don't need to be introduced to some like rogue captain of some foreign army that's just going to get burned to ash anyway. It's like, what? Why? It's as useless as Euron showing up at this point.
Yeah. Emily, any thoughts? I mean, I know we sort of discussed that offline, or at least we talked about the legend of the Golden Company, which I
Yeah, I thought that it was interesting that they would show up. I mean, they've been mentioned before. I think in Breaker of Chains when we meet the other kind of like mercenary Second Sons that
right.
Nahara is part. But yeah, the Golden Company was founded by another very outsidery Targaryen bastard, Aegor, and so Aegor, along with some of his other brothers, started the Blackfire Rebellion, which is like this whole big like mythic, like in the ethos of Targaryens, like it's kind of one of the cool things. And so, but the interesting thing about Aegor is that he really hated Brendan Rivers, which is the Three-Eyed Raven.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really, but I think why they're bringing it up now, besides the sort of like cool callback of like they keep doing this of like reminding us that the Targaryens are really storied people and a storied family. Jorah Mormont used to be in the Golden Company.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
And has the show established that yet? Is that canon?
I think so. And when he first meets her, I think they talk about it, that she's like, so if you're a knight from Westeros, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I left. I was in the Golden Company.
Oh my God, I remember that now. Wow.
And so now Jorah is like on the loose. And so, look, Jorah on the loose. So I would be really curious if they're going to try to link that up of like the Jorah to come back to Khaleesi with this gift of the Golden Company.
Oh God, there's no time.
The tide of the whole war. There's 10,000 of these dudes. And they're all skilled, bloodthirsty fighters.
Well, wait.
They're crazy.
Wait a second. No, wait. If there's 10,000 of them, we're going to get to the point where, like, any warrior from Essos is going to be like, I'm not going to Westeros. Yeah. Everybody who goes to Westeros who's a warrior fucking dies and never comes back. The Dothraki are all gone. The Golden Company is all gone. The Unsullied are all gone. Like, there's nobody on Essos anymore to fight anybody else. Like, there's universal peace, which is awesome because there's just no warriors left. But I'm certainly not going to go over there again. Like, there'll just be Jack and Hagar like sweeping the floors. That'll be all that's left.
Yeah.
Well, let's briefly take an aside to talk about the Unsullied, because something's got to happen with them. Like, something's got to happen. They're stranded. I believe Tyrion mentioned, or somebody mentioned, having them march back because there's no grain in the stores for them.
Well, it's a good thing too, because Daenerys just procured them a whole lot of. Oh no, she didn't.
But I mean, do we have any predictions or curiosities there on? Do we just think the Unsullied will march back to someplace off the coast so that Dragonstone can send?
They're all red shirts at this point. It doesn't.
Oh no. Okay. Yeah. Well, I won't delay any longer. And we should just jump into what I think is one of the most awkward scene names ever: the Loot Train Battle.
Did you give it this name?
No. I've seen this pop up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like when you see the like sort of behind the scenes like effects. That's what they're calling behind the scenes of the Loot Train Battle. So the episode actually does open on Jaime and Bronn having conversation with Dickon Tarly.
That's one of my favorite like intentionally humorous lines. What's your name there? Rickon? Dickon. It's just like written by Eric Idle. or like John Cleese like wrote a joke.
The fact that it's like a call, like they did it last episode, and then to have Bronn actually laugh out loud at it this episode.
Yeah.
So
funny.
We do learn that Randall Tarly, Sam's dad and Dickon's dad, is a tremendous dick face. Yeah, he is a Dickon himself.
I mean, we already knew this, I feel like.
Yeah, and he wants to whip his own soldiers who are dawdling.
Yeah.
Awful. But so there's this great establishing thing of Bronn wants his money, he wants his castle, he wants his lands or whatever. But they've got to march back with the money. They've got to win the war before Jaime can give him any empty castle or whatever.
I thought it was pretty gutsy for him to ask for Highgarden too. It's like, no, dude, you get to have that melted shit over on the west side of the country.
Hall.
Yeah, we save Highgarden for the really, the really good the good people who've done us some favors. Like you've been a friend, but you're gonna. I mean, they gave freaking. I mean, obviously Highgarden wasn't theirs to give, but they gave freaking Harren Hall the Littlefinger, and he did a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He was way more valuable to him.
It's like I'd like that castle right there, please. And I just can't imagine the indignation in Jaime's mind at that moment where it's just like, are you the fuck did you just say? Like I just can't.
I like that he needled him about Lady Olenna. That was really great. Like what did she prick you one last time? Great Rose reference there. So anyway, so there's this opening scene. They establish that the train of men is spread out. Half of them have crossed the river or something, and the other half hadn't, and they need to hurry up before nightfall so that they're not too spread out. And then they hear this noise, and Taylor, I already know that you knew what was coming, but Emily, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Did you know it
and
would
so,
be?
because I always, my hearing is not super good, and so I always have, and just like a habit, Peter's father is hard of hearing, so we always have the closed captioning on now, like always for any show, like wherever I am. And so I was like watching, and it was like, what's all that like gathering smoke and gathering clouds and stuff? And then I heard the closed captioning said hoofbeats, and I was like, oh my god, it's the Dothraki! Like I couldn't believe it. And then they did the dragon screech, and I peed my pants. Like I lost my mind. Like I just couldn't believe we were gonna get both the Dothraki and the dragon fight. Like I couldn't believe it.
They drug it out though so perfectly. Like
the point
where, and I mean,
paced.
The thing that I loved most about it had this like Kubrickian like music, like the score where it was just like single discorded tones, like. Mm-hmm. And it kind of came just very slightly faded in, and you heard like the rumbling of the hooves, so you knew like okay, but then you didn't know if like how the dragon was going to appear, like was it going to appear, and then just to hear, every time the camera shows the men assembling, the Lannister soldiers are getting
trembling too.
Yeah, it cuts back to the hill, and you think okay, now it cuts back to the hill, still nothing there, but the sound is louder. Cuts back to the Lannisters, cuts back to the hill, still nothing. It was just like, oh my God, come on. And that score just kept inserting itself into the scene. And then to hear the whole, like, just like the screaming. Actually, Rachel, my fiance, like had leaned in and she's like, is that a woman screaming? I'm like, no, that's like 10,000 murderous bastards, screaming. I'm like, just that creepiness. And it was funny that it mirrored, I'm sure probably unintentionally, but it mirrored the same scene of Helm's Deep arriving, or not Helm's Deep.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Yeah.
Theoden and his what the hell is Theoden's kingdom called? Whatever. Theoden and his soldiers arriving at the Rohan. The riders of Rohan arriving at the White Tower to God, I can't think of any game of Lord of the Rings references.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, but that same scene where they ride over and in an act of like hope, like oh my God, you're here, they're gonna save the day. This time that same scene, it only is just like every man who survives that will be their nightmare, is just seeing that for the rest of their lives. That's the story they're going to tell, the day that this gigantic army came and then the dragon above, just like if that wasn't bad, if the Dothraki weren't bad enough, they had to, endure one entire gigantic dragon. Like that's, I can't. Let me ask this question though. Was the intention of this raid meant to be for a story or meant to be for a strategy? And I ask that because strategically it was kind of stupid. She burned up a bunch of grain, like she was like having fun, like just detonating these grain wagons, and she lost not a significant amount, but enough Dothraki where she could have like led with a dragon, and the Dothraki could have followed, and she probably could have mowed down anything standing in their way. So she let some of them go. I wonder if strategically it doesn't make any sense. As a story, it's going to be something that, it's going to be like a propaganda machine like you've never seen. Anyone who lives is going to go back, or she might do the token, like, one soldier, like, I'll leave you alive to go back and tell them what happened here, like that kind of thing. I just imagine it's meant to do that more than to be strategic, but I didn't know if anybody else saw that.
No, I think it's absolutely strategic. Yeah,
me too. And I was going to talk about this when me and Todd get into a fight about Daenerys later, but that we're going to get in a fight, Todd. It was obviously a very good story, but I think too it really was strategic in a sense that we saw during the War of the Five Kings how quickly the people of King's Landing turn on their monarchs when there's no food. So yeah, Dany doesn't get that food to feed her soldiers, but they've survived this long somehow. They don't really talk about what they have like with them, but neither do the Lannisters. And really, Dany knows that even if her people are starving, they will stay with her. The same could not be said about the people in King's Landing. That if the people in King's Landing are not fed by the food that she burned up, they will murder people in the streets.
Okay.
So I think it was absolutely strategic in that sense of like, maybe she didn't need it, but they really did. And I think too, it was just a really good show of force on her part, and enough of her like good heart of where she targeted people who could defend themselves if there is a defense against Dragonfire and Dothraki. She didn't want to go to, she could have flown directly to the Red Keep. It was right there. We could see it on the horizon, and she didn't, because she wanted to show people that she's not here for that. Like that she wants to hit him where it hurts militaristically, not in the people.
Well, it's interesting that you both talk about the grain, because what I took from it was the money can't be transported.
Oh, the money is
back to
already
King's
in
Landing,
King's Landing.
Yeah,
No.
there was a
No.
Yeah, no, it
Yeah,
is.
Randall Tarley says the money is already past the gates.
It's a blink and you miss it line. I had because the first time through I didn't see it, and I was on IO9, and they're like, oh no, and so I went back. I'm like, oh shit, right. So the gold is out of the picture.
But okay, that's an interesting blink and you miss it line, because a very careful line that Cersei says to Tycho, my brother is escorting it here personally.
Yeah, correct. It's just, but they had the train had gotten separated.
So then I wonder why everyone who made this scene calls it the loot train battle.
Well, still loot. I mean, it's still food is loot when you're hungry.
Well,
food is money, Todd. Food is life.
For back to the strategic question, I think it's absolutely strategic, because you've probably found this in your scouring the internet, about this week's episode. But of course, in episode 5, season 1, Cersei and Robert Baratheon, her then husband, are talking about Daenerys, and Robert Baratheon says, if the Targaryen girl convinces her horse lord husband to invade and the Dothraki horde cross the narrow sea, we won't be able to stop them. And he goes on, only a fool would meet the Dothraki in an open field. So I think Daenerys and Tyrion realize that, and they realize like, this is why we strike them now. This is a strategy, because they are exposed.
Oh, I don't think Tyrion had any part of this. I think he's been put on the bench.
I think he was literally there to watch, and I think that's kind of like a dig in the side, like kind of Dany's only really like pettiness in this whole thing, of that she really wanted to see where his loyalties lie, and I think she kind of wanted him to watch his family's army burn.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, it kind of felt like too, like his Dothraki escorts were seeing to it.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, they'd be like, "No, you're gonna watch." Also it was that part of it, but it was also a little bit of her going, "Hey, I know strategy better than you, and you're gonna watch that too. You're gonna watch me actually know what I'm, not listen to you for once and actually succeed here." Like it just kind of had that a couple little digs at him. Do you think now that Jaime and Bronn are, almost assuredly alive somehow, that they'll be taken in and we can get some scenes with Jaime and Tyrion, or Bronn and Tyrion, hopefully before the end?
Well, I'm just bummed that Bronn, I mean, as much as I love his character, like I really felt like he should have died in that battle.
Mm-hmm.
That felt like the rightful end to him.
Well, it was right after he had all his lines about like his future, it was a little foreshadowed too. You could almost say, like, it was just like, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I want in the world, and blah blah blah. And then to have him, have to die via, awesome heroic Bronn moment.
Yeah. Did we see him go into the water too?
Yeah.
We did.
I don't know that we saw his face. I rewatched that a couple times, but I think it pretty heavily implied that was Bronn.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people. I said Bronn too, because he was maybe the closest, but a lot of people said, I almost called him Rickon again. Dickon. Too, because It's like it would have to be someone big enough to like knock Jamie off his horse in shallow water, and Dickon is a giant human man.
Interesting.
I have a very good friend in Rome named Rickon Dickon.
Because Dickon, one of the reasons I watched it was because Bronn is not on a horse when we leave him. Like he jumps off that scorpion, and it's not like we see him jump on a horse. And whoever jumps, knocks Jamie off is on another horse. So yeah, maybe that was Dickon, because last time we saw Dickon, he was on a horse. So
who knows? But I don't know what will happen with Bronn. But I'm just like really mad at him now. Like, how dare he go after Drogon? So mean.
Yeah, no kidding. I know, that's probably why I wanted him to die. Just where he was sitting there, I just felt like I was projecting a little bit that he was thinking, oh, he's going to be Bronn of the Blackwater or whatever that shoots down the first dragon in 1,000 years,
Yeah.
That's what he was thinking.
Yeah.
When he dropped his gold, he had that moment of like, shit, I could take my gold and like leave, but he chose to be like, well, but if I do this, they'll definitely give me High Garden.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. It's like, all right, if you don't do this, I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, not only the gold, but both those two things together. He looks at the gold. He's clearly like just this venal person who wants his payout. He's still a sellsword. And then the way he looks at Drogon as like, yeah, this will be the thing that gets me the castle or whatever. He's not a good dude.
No,
never has been.
Yeah, that's a good point.
As much as charming as he is.
Charming, yeah, but like he's a mercenary, and I think he said it himself. He would sell out his own mother. He's not a good guy in this sense.
So, guys, I gotta ask: is Drogon not long for this world? Because that had to be a poison spear. Had to be.
Why would it be poison?
Because it was called a scorpion.
But I think it's the way that the weapon is shaped.
Qyburn's he loves his poisons and chemistry.
Yeah, we've got a lot of poison stuff. I don't like that.
I don't know.
But I really didn't.
Yeah, I mean, they never implicitly said it, so I don't know. But
yeah, I would hate for them to reveal that later. Like, oh, also it was poisoned. Surprise.
I just think Qyburn loves chemistry so much, and this is just another way for they just made a batch to kill Ilaria, to torture Ilaria. It's like anyway. I that was an interesting question, and the other one was just why she brought just one. Like, why wouldn't she just bring them all and just completely? At that point, you wouldn't even need the Dothraki, would you?
Well,
I said this in the notes. Yeah, I think she really just kind of wanted to show what she could do with one.
Yeah.
Like, if she could do this with one, what could she do with three? It makes you think. It makes her enemies think of like, holy shit, she killed 5,000 of us with 6,000 Dothraki and a dragon. What is she going to do with 10,000 Dothraki, 8,000 Unsullied, and 3 of these dragons?
Yeah.
And Drogon is her favorite. Drogon is the biggest and the meanest and her baby. So
and the only one that she rides.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
So
now.
we are close to our time, and I think we got to wrap things up.
Before we do, I have one more question about this battle. Are we sure beyond all doubt that Ed Sheeran was actually killed in the attack? Do we know?
I don't think so, because he said that his group were going to the Twins, and that's like the opposite direction.
No.
I know. I'm sorry. I know.
Oh. I was kind of hoping he, of the amazing ash bodies that would just blow away. Like the camera would just pan over to be Ed Sheeran's shape, just like here he goes. Oh, he was there. Bye, Ed. Which, by the way, I mean, how badass was that? Like, the fire was so
my God,
ruthless that with some of those guys, they would just instantly turn to ash. Like, that was just, I mean, it was as much the living hell that Hardhome was in terms of just the relentless nature of the oncoming force, and as sort of visceral as Battle of the Bastards was where you could just feel what it was like to be there on that battlefield, and just how unending unending hell. Like, just both of those things slammed together. It makes me wonder if this is where they're going. Like, what happens when they start pairing this and Hardhome together, and like these epic clashes, like how, I mean, good God, like how much
starring
money?
No actors.
Yeah. I mean, seriously,
thousands and millions of pixels.
At that point, it's just going to have to be pixels versus all of us. I just don't know. Man.
Well, let's talk about what we saw in the next week. coming up next week trailer, we did see a scene, or at least we heard a voice of Varys speaking to Tyrion, we believe, saying someone's got to make Daenerys listen.
Yeah. I take that as a potential foreshadow that she's maybe going Mad Queen, or maybe fulfilling, Todd, your sort of original assumption that she would be the villain of the show.
Are you guys ready to get into the fight?
Well, we're all out of time.
My apologies, Emily Kelley. We'll see her next time.
Like that Matt Damon, Jimmy Kimmel thing. That's me.
So we all agree that she's the villain, but no, actually, Emily, I didn't write that question in the notes. That was Taylor.
God damn it, Taylor. Fight with both of you. Okay, but like, I said that because I got a little, like, if you read my tweets, if you follow me on Twitter, you saw that I got a little spicy about people talking shit about Dany. So here's my thing, Kate, and I'll keep it short. There's only one Mad Queen on Game of Thrones, and her name is not Daenerys Targaryen. Okay, her name is Cersei Lannister. I mean, like, Cersei Lannister killed thousands of people with Aerys' weapon of choice, wildfire. She killed men, women, and children, innocent people, in the middle of a city while in a religious institution. Okay, she just chained a mother to the wall to watch her daughter die and then rot away in front of her. Okay, like,
what do you say it that way?
I mean, like, Dany saved thousands of slaves. Like, I really, and like, you're obviously, everyone's entitled to their opinions, and not everyone's gonna like Dany, but I just feel like, if we're gonna talk about we're going to talk about a villain. The villain is obviously Cersei. She delights, she literally said it herself, like, she delights in staying up at night and thinking about ways to murder her enemies. Yeah. She is very much this mad queen, way more than Dany could ever be. And so someone said this because I was getting kind of like riled up on Twitter. His name is Justin. And he said, people who think that Dany is the villain will be disappointed. And that's exactly, I'm trying not to get too mad, because like, that's what I want. I want to prove people wrong, that she's the hero of this story, one of the heroes of this story, and that she has been all along. And like, when her and Jon Snow ride off on their dragons at the end of this, after destroying all their White Walkers, and their reign is the most peaceful and prosperous that Westeros has ever seen, I'm not even going to say I told you so. I'm just going to smirk knowingly and sip wine.
Well, I mean, I actually agree with that. I think the problem, the people, I don't know, I saw some other comments about people not being behind Daenerys, which is funny because, like, within my group of friends that watch, I'm the only one who would ever say something bad about Daenerys. But the reason I don't like her is not because I have suspected she's a villain all along. I just think her character has been done terribly, and which is not necessarily like Daenerys's fault per se, just that, like, they've either done things way too obviously or way too subtly to like stay consistent with her. It's kind of like the bend to the knee thing. It's like, we get it. You've said it in every episode. Like, you're just making yourself look like this entitled crazy person. But you are absolutely right. There's one Mad Queen. And what I was thinking about after our last episode is how the tables have really turned. And when this all started, it was this very, like, we got a lot of Robert talking about the Mad King, and we knew the Targaryens, married brother and sister and things like that. And now what do we have? We have a Mad Queen who's sleeping with her brother and has been all her life. And like you said, is literally using like the fire that, that the Mad King didn't even use on his own people. Like, she's already used that on her own people. Cersei is absolutely the villain, and Daenerys is a hero, if a, kind of poorly sketched out one, in my opinion, sometimes.
And she's so beautiful. Whatever. We get that you like the redheads more than the white hair, the silver hairs. It's fine.
Hey, we could have got that Tamsin, what's her face, the original. There was another actress who was cast before what's the current
Clark.
Yes, thank you.
Really?
And she's there's a couple
whole pilot shot with her, right?
Yeah, whole pilot. Catelyn Stark and Daenerys were two completely different actresses.
Oh my god.
And I'm glad they recast. It would not have been the same.
She is a delight. Like, just like when you see the back, like the you like this is acting, like all of them too, like, and that's what I was reading, that Maisie Williams and Sophie Turner, like, you know, they're BFFs like in real life, and then they said it was embarrassing to act against each other because they haven't acted against each other in like 7 years or something. But okay, see, that was less of a fight.
Amelia Clark, though, but like I was thinking about this too. Like, go back to her very first episode, man. She has threaded a very solid, organic transition from this naive girl to this like power hungry woman, and it's just like, you know, it's really well done.
I don't doubt the actor's like ability to do anything like that. I just think some of the writing has been kind of ham-fisted. So
yeah, but I mean, I think we can all agree like that they've had a hard time with the female characters of the show, and it's definitely gotten a lot better. There was a really dark period like 2 seasons ago, but yeah, it's definitely gotten a lot better, treating them with respect and allowing them to be these characterizations like that are pretty cool and like pretty awesome.
Well, I'm just hoping we have 3 episodes left in the season. I'm hoping that the percentage of dragon fire only increases in every episode.
God,
like they're just gonna blow their whole budget. Like every HBO show now, other than Game of Thrones, has no budget.
If the 7th episode just looked like one of those like Yule log videos that you put on the holidays, dragon fire, like with the occasional peak of like a dragon face, I would be okay with that. I'm honestly gonna rewatch Reign of Fire just to get in more dragons.
Oh my god!
They really animated Drogon. I mean, like you got to see him in his full.
Good.
Like, it was really, of all the cinematic dragons that have ever been, it may be the best. I mean, honestly, it's amazing. Like just the articulation of the neck, the way he moves, like the way like when he's mid-flight and like he sort of has to like hummingbird style go mid-flight and like fire that way. Just like everything felt so believable. It's funny though, some of the CGI shots of her riding him were a little but like him just as a character, like as a model, you're like, Jesus.
Yeah, it was really good.
Incredible. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm really excited next week that we saw in the preview that John will get to see Drogon up close for the first time, and I think that's maybe the first step of like, hey, oh shit, my dragon likes him. Like, what is happening?
Man, really I hope maybe I don't want Dragonfire. Maybe I just want like a lovable comedy where like he learns how to train Drogon. I don't know what you would call that.
No, he has to ride Ryceris, I think is Rygel, because obviously it's named for his dad. Like he would have to ride that one.
Yeah, that's a good call. I think Theon's gonna ride Viserion.
No.
He's a secret Targaryen. And with that, we're out of time.
Oh my god.
Hey,
just
Emily,
mic drop and like walk away.
Emily, where can people find you on social media?
Oh my god. You can find me and yell at me about my Daenerys Targaryen opinions, I suppose, on Twitter and Instagram, that Emily Kelley. You can also check out my podcast here on the Their Network. It's Fan Theories. We just talked about Harry Potter, but we also had a Game of Thrones one if you like to hear me talk about Game of Thrones.
You know what one they should also listen to is the first one. I mean, they should listen to all of them, but I just rewatched Rogue One and was like, oh yeah, we did a fan theories on that. We got like, it's kind of cool to think back on what what the fan theories were that we discussed before.
It
the movie
was
came
all
out.
Wrong.
But it's just still fun to think about.
Every theory except for that Galen did purposely put a kill switch in the Death Star. That was the only theory that was right.
You know, that's a thing. You and Peter don't go back and do scorecards, do you? How many were right?
I was thinking that we would like maybe do like a YouTube follow up because it would be just like 5 minutes or something. That would be fun.
Yeah, that would be fun.
I think that would be cool. Yeah.
Yes, check out Fan Theories. Taylor, where can people find this podcast, which is called Wednesday in Westeros?
They can find this podcast on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Google Play, on Pocket Casts, and SoundCloud. Wherever else you might want to find.
Just Google Wednesday in Westeros.
Yeah, just Google Wednesday in Westeros. We're there as well as all our podcasts. Find us on SoundCloud. Find us on. Actually, visit us. Findusthere.org.
Thank you both for being here. 7 blessings to you all.
And Azor Ahai.
Blessings, bitches.